Hi there, I'm Des.
And I'm Tim, and together Des and I head up the men's ministry Momentum Australia.
Momentum has multiple functions, but primarily our aim is to help men to succeed in life, to do life better.
We run a weekly radio show that goes all around Australia where we talk about anything and everything that relates to men.
And you know, we encourage men to do life in community, to do life with other men where we can be accountable, we can be welcomed, we can be open and honest about what's happening in our world.
We'd love you to have a look around our website. That's momentumaustralia.org. There you'll find a bunch of resources to help you on your journey and all of our previous episodes and topics.
We thank you for your interest in Momentum Australia, and we hope you enjoyed this video today.
All right, so good to have you here for this week's Momentum. Hello there. It is Tim and Des once again as we get ready to explore another wonderful topic. And it's so wonderful to have you tuning in. Really appreciate you doing that as we steam towards the end of the year. Not many shows left. So if you'd like to check out what we've talked about previously, momentumaustralia.org is our website. You can have a look there and find out a whole bunch more about us and check out some more shows at your convenience. And of course, something else there you'll find, I'm going to let my good friend and co-host mention that. But Des, how are you this week, mate? Are you good?
Yeah, really good. I'm just as good as you are.
Well, then you're absolutely stunning.
And you know what? In my whole life, I've never been called stunning. Of that, I can assure you. Look, guys, just want to talk about our care line. You know, guys, quite often we find that guys are doing life on their own. They don't have close friends. They don't have family around them they can talk to. And so that's why we got this care line, 1-800-000-MEN, 1-800-000-636, which is a confidential and safe care line where you can contact us indirectly, but contact us and talk about things that are happening in your world. And so it's open from 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And we encourage you to find friends in your own world. But if you don't have those, then please reach out to the care line 1-800-000-636. And also, it's really exciting that we have something brand new to tell you about, and that is our YouTube channel. And so Momentum for Men is the name of the YouTube channel. And we're going to take all our videos that we have for this year and over time, put them onto our YouTube channel. So you'll not only be able to hear Tim, you'll be able to see the handsome bloke that he is too. So how good is that? What a win.
Well, some people might disagree with you, Des, but anyway, that's another story. But certainly encourage you to have a look at the YouTube channel, Momentum for Men. You know, as we launch into this week's show, we got our very special guest back with us in just a tick. We'll introduce him. But, you know, there's a famous quote that says, courage is the greatest of all virtues because if you haven't got courage, you may not have an opportunity to use any of the others.
Yeah, and while courage is certainly a necessity, it's not the only thing we need to be able to pursue the life that we feel led to.
Pastor and counselor Steve Wickham, and of course, good friend of Momentum, says humility is also needed to balance our courage. And to help explain that, Steve joins us once again on this week's Momentum. It is always good to have you with us, Steve, and welcome back.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Des.
It's all good.
So, I mean, let's repeat that. The quote is, courage is the greatest of all virtues, because if you haven't got courage, you may not have an opportunity to use the others. I mean, there's variants of that quote. We all kind of know that quote. I'm going to start with the definition of courage. The dictionary definition says the ability to do something that frightens us, bravery. And the other, which I think is really interesting, strength in the face of pain or grief, which I think is actually really powerful.
It is.
Courage is strength in the face of pain or grief. Because when we think of courage, I don't know about you, but that's not what I think of courage as. I don't think of my courageous moments of strength in the face of pain or grief. And yet the truth is, that's probably when we are most courageous, right?
Yeah. And fear is such a normal emotion, normal human emotion. Fear, sadness, so prevalent, whether you're man, woman, child. Essentially, you know, courage is necessary in the daily living of life. The existential challenge of living the human life requires us to have courage. Courage doesn't come. There's no need for courage if there's no fear. But fear is part of the journey of human life. And you mentioned grief there before. If we're battling with loss and grief, things have happened to us beyond our control, or we're in a situation where we are grieving. Simply walking out each second, minute, hour, and day of our lives is an act of courage because it's just tough.
I kind of had a bit of a revelation when you said that. And again, it's a bit silly because it's so obvious. But I mean, showing up to life every day does require courage. And for some of us, we're being more courageous than others, right? In that space, let's be honest. Because for some people, life, for whatever reason, whether it's the way we're wired or just the season that we're in, just walking out my door and putting his face on every day, turning up to work, whatever it may be, that's courageous for some of us, right?
Yeah, and for some people listening today, that's all that they'll need from this particular show, because that's what they actually need to hear. Most people, when we're struggling, when we're really feeling very broken, that sort of thing, the last thing we think of is that we're courageous. The last thing we think of is that we're actually doing the tough work here, and that we actually should be getting a pat, on the back for just sticking with it. You know, I love the quote from Winston Churchill: if you're going through hell, keep going.
Right.
And if you're on a mental health journey, that is, you're turning up courageously every single day, or every single moment you're in that. Well done. That's kudos to you.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to look dramatic or look, like as if you're a superhuman. It is just getting through the day from 1 hour to the next for lots of people.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. When I spoke to a lady a little while ago, a few weeks ago, who, had a great life. She was a teacher. She was a very strong faith, but she got married. And within a few years, her husband had brain cancer, passed away. And now the same lady is struggling with breast cancer. And so, that requires a courage that I couldn't even get my head around. And when I talked to her, she talked about, the fact that her faith was just so critical. That act of in her daily courage relied on her faith so much.
It just reminds me of the power of lived experience, because as you share that story, Des, and if we were in a group of 10 people and people shared their lived experience, what they've gotten through or what they're dealing with at the moment, it's actually really inspiring, and it helps us to connect and understand we're actually all living, very courageous lives. And we look at what people have endured or are enduring. And I'm hoping that people listening, if you're really struggling, that you take heart from. You are inspirational by just keeping on going with in your present struggle, your present hardship.
There was another quote, Des, and you almost kind of mentioned the quote without, I think, realizing it. But it says this: courage doesn't have to look dramatic or fearless. Sometimes it looks more like quiet perseverance.
Yeah.
And I would argue, I think, Steve, it's probably not sometimes, it's probably more often. It looks like quiet perseverance for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when we read verses like, consider it pure joy, brothers and sisters, when you're facing trials of many kinds in the Bible, in James, we think, what is that about? But essentially, it's talking to our daily human experience when we are struggling. That if you just keep going, there is benefit in this. We talk in my work a lot about post-traumatic growth. The fact that we can look back 5 or 10 years and think about the things we've been through, the things that we've endured, and take great heart that we got through. And we will get through this present challenge. Wow. But it's quiet perseverance, isn't it? But it's not never applauded, but it is very, very, very applaudable.
Yes, no, that's very.
I'd never heard of that, post-traumatic growth. I mean, and let's be honest, the three of us on this call, we've all had stuff in our lives that's been, we've lived long enough to have journeyed through some seasons. And I think that's really interesting, Steve, the post-traumatic growth, because I mean, the truth is, right, that the courage in that is showing up, dealing with that, and not letting it bury you.
Yep.
Not letting it overtake you, not letting it pull you back into bitterness or, staying in grief or wallowing, or it's actually doing the journey, sitting in that stuff, and then allowing the courage is then allowing it to keep showing up in life.
And also it's an external focus as well. So, having courage, you're encouraging others to have that same mindset. Even though you may be going through your own trauma, courage is saying to the person beside you, hey, put my arm around you, care about you. That's courage.
Well, it's very apt you've put that way, because the word encourage literally means encourage, put courage inside someone. Yeah. When you encourage me, Des, you're putting courage inside me to give me hope to enable me to keep going. So good, isn't it? Encouragement.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I think also as well, just quickly, not waylaboring the point, but I think it is good for us then to, when we go throughout our day, to be mindful of the fact that there will be people in our lives. And let's be honest, we can look around and think that people have their stuff together, right? And the truth is that none of us fully has our stuff together. Let's be honest, right? And we don't know what battles people are facing on a daily basis, of what sort of quiet perseverance that they've had to show up just to show up today. You know what I mean? That they've had to step into just to see them at work today, just to see them at church on a Sunday morning, just to see them in the gym when they haven't seen them for. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a good reminder to us all to go, people are being really courageous, whether it looks like it or not. And we can sometimes gloss over that or not recognize that. And it is good to be mindful of that and be, as we talked about there, an encourager to
Yeah.
put in that courage into
Yeah.
others and just
Yeah.
encourage them.
And as you were
So,
talking, I was just thinking of how important it is to be kind, because we don't know what another person's dealing with, and that's super important. But it also normalizes the whole thing, doesn't it, Tim? We can often be isolated in our struggles and think we're the only ones dealing with this. Inevitably, we're all the same. We're actually all in the same boat, and it's incredibly encouraging. I talked to an author of a book yesterday. This book is called Just One Reason. A little book, and it's by Stuart O'Neill. Now, the book is a mental health book. And when he was sharing with me yesterday, he's saying, I'm still on the journey. And I'm saying back to him, I'm still on the journey too. Isn't it? Like, I'm a pastor and a counselor, but I still have my struggles. Isn't that empowering? We're all in the same boat.
Yeah. It's the great leveler, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And it's funny you say that about, pastors. Because we look at our pastors and we say, he's got it all sorted, he's got everything nailed. But what we don't think is the fact that he is, he's dealing with everybody else's troubles as well as his own.
Yeah.
And the load is so much higher and broader. And so, acts of courage around helping them is such a good thing.
Look, one of the things that the Bible teaches us is there was only one perfect person. The Bible is littered with stories of David, Moses, and all these paragons, Paul, and pick anybody in the Bible, all very fallible individuals.
Yeah. As you say, as much as courage comes in many forms, researchers tend to agree that courage features three primary components. That's risk, an intention, and a goal. Can we explore that? Do you mind? So when we break down courage, there's an element of risk, there's an intention, and a goal. Can you explain and expand on that for us, Steve?
Well, if we've got an opportunity to press into courage and to do something that is a stretch for us, obviously there is a risk. We've got to step out. We've got to put our toes into the water to step out of the boat. We have to have intention. We need to have some purpose and some drive, a goal that's going to drive us to where we want to get to. So some vision of where we're trying to get to. So anything grand in our lives, and it couldn't be losing weight or getting over something we're dependent on, or a habit, or something like that. It does take courage day by day to believe that we are getting there, and will be worth it at the end.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
I remember a quote from Erwin McManus, and I think he said something along the lines of, the most powerful thing you can ever do is choose.
Wow.
Because essentially choice is the forerunner for everything.
Yeah.
Right? And when he explained it, I'm like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
As long as you make the right choice.
Well, we can have a lot of intentions, but unless we choose to do that, it doesn't matter, right? And that's where I suppose the risk piece comes in, to go, well, am I going to choose bravely, courageously to step into that?
Yeah. And there can be many reasons that will stop us from actually pressing into it. Things that might make us procrastinate, for instance. But pressing into it, doing it because it's the right thing, because it's a good decision. And no matter the cost in the short term, in the moment, the courage that it takes to say something or to go and do something, believing that when we do the right thing, the good thing, that it's the right thing, a good thing, and that will be blessed ultimately.
Do you think that men in our society in Australia are being courageous? Do you think that men display courage in today's society and in today's world? What are your thoughts?
Without a question, without a shadow of a doubt, more than ever, I think it's an intense life. There's so much information coming in for all people. There's so many pressures around the cost of living and all of these other things. There's so many pressure points. And I think in many ways, I think we live in a day where diversity is such a big thing. Sometimes men can actually feel smaller in that. And I think that's valid. I mean, we want to make sure that our women, they've got a maximum voice, maximum opportunity, but I think sometimes men can feel a bit smaller in that. I think that's just a fact that we have to wrestle with. I think it does take courage and humility these days to be a man and to show up in our families, to balance work with our family and all of that sort of thing. So, it is such a necessary thing.
And you look at your families today and you say, wow, how important is it that fathers, husbands have that courage to stand up for their family and stand up for family values and stand up for things that society would try and tear down on them, but to stand up and be courageous for those things. Yeah, it's so important.
There are probably so many inputs in life these days that encourage men to be passive and to take the back seat and not to kind of be assertive. No, and it's also metering out the aggression. You know, we don't want to be aggressive. We need to meet that middle ground, but certainly not be passive. You know, let's not be passengers in this life.
Yeah, be strong rather than
Yeah.
Well, let's bounce off.
And I think just to finish that, Tim, I think society's looking to men to do that. Society needs men to have that appropriate strength.
Yeah. May I ask them, what's the difference between courage and confidence? Because we can, as men, we kind of want to feel like we're confident, right? And we kind of try and display that to the world at times. How is that different from courage?
Well, confidence is a funny one, isn't it? Because there can be a faux confidence, like a fake confidence that we just fake it till we make it. I think true confidence comes from humility. You know, it's being safe about, you know, it's accepting where I'm at. I'm okay with who I am. I don't need to be anybody different. And I think that takes courage to be in that space with oneself. And I think that's the strength. That's the strength, certainly the biblical strength that can bring so much blessing to all our relationships and to our own lives. And so confidence, I think, comes out of humility and courage, meeting life's challenges as they come, doing the best we can, accepting what we can't change, having the courage to change the things we can. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say that confidence is a byproduct of courage, right? So if you are courageous and you step out and you take a stand, you will be seen as confident.
Yeah, that's much more succinctly said than I.
For an Irishman.
Very good, Des.
Well, interestingly, Steve, I mean, and you just mentioned humility there, and you said that's the one thing that sets the courageous apart, is having the balance of the humility. There's a quote on your blog, and I want to read this. It says, though it may take 20 years to fully recover from some major setbacks, the one with humility will have the courage to take the challenge deep within themselves. Only with humility is there the serenity to accept what cannot be changed, with the tenacity to do what can be done one step and one day at a time. And I know that's fairly lengthy, but I mean, there's a lot in that. Yeah. And that I think is the power of balancing humility and courage together, is the humility to have the wisdom and the ability to kind of look at myself, and then the courage to be able to take on board some of that stuff, accept it, to show up.
Yeah. And the truth is, and many people will look back on their lives, you know, we're in our 50s, so we're going to look back a little way in our lives. If we've looked back, it probably takes 10 or 20 years to build something substantial in our career or in our lives. That doesn't just happen in a vacuum. We need to show up each day and show faith, which is courage, you know, continue to, you know, deal with things that we don't like, in faith that we will end up in a place that we're hoping to end up in, that we're following our purpose. We're trying to reach a goal. And it so often it's not something that can be achieved in a year or two even.
Yeah.
Many of us are on a 10 or 20 year quest. So I want to just encourage people, if you've got a grand goal, stick with it, because it may take that length of time.
That's interesting, because we're encouraged, I guess, in society to have short-term goals. So goals that, you know, if you don't achieve it in the year, well, you can sort of hop out and do something else. Whereas what you're talking about there in terms of, you know, a lifelong goal, you know, where do you want to be in 20 years time, 30 years time? I mean, I think that's amazingly powerful.
And the other side of that, Steve, if we want to put language around it, is resilience, which is the other part of what we're talking about: courage, humility, and resilience. And, you know, I suppose you've got to be resilient, you know, in this life, but certainly with your long-term goals. I mean, that, like you said, to be able to have that focus and keep showing up, keep being courageous, balancing that with humility, that takes resilience to do that over a period of time. So let's break down resilience, I suppose. And what are the key ingredients then? If people were to be a resilient people, or we kind of label people as they've been so resilient. I mean, what does that look like? What does that really mean?
Well, it's simply the practice of bouncing back. But, you know, I think part of resilience is, if we've had a setback, we're allowed to have a setback. We're allowed to have a day or two to adjust to something. Maybe if you're in a season of grief, it's going to take longer than that. So ride the waves of life, the valleys. You know, it's not all crests. So resilience is just about having the courage in the moment to, I guess, face, not flee. You're not angry about a situation. You're not running away from it. You're facing it. You're in it. And in faith, you will bounce back. Courage, humility, all lead to resilience. And resilience is such a bit of a buzzword, but true resilient people are essentially humble, and they bounce back because the purpose in their hearts. They've got a vision, they've got a goal, and they will continue. It's like the tortoise, rather than the hare. It's the tortoise that wins. It's the one with the tenacity to day in, day out, continue to show up, wins ultimately.
And recover from whatever they're going through.
Yeah.
We all know people. There's a friend of mine here in Port Macquarie, and he, all of a sudden lost his wife. And, I look at that man and what he's gone through and how he has recovered and how he's getting on with his world is absolutely amazing in terms of courage, in terms of being humble about what's happened, and resilience in terms of just saying, hey, this has happened to me. I still trust God and going forward.
So there's an aspect of that, Des, for that man and for others that we've journeyed with, that those sorts of challenges, grief deepens us. It takes us to a deeper place. It actually grows us. It forces us into a growth kind of place where we necessarily, we're forced into a growth place. So that deepening is also part of resilience. Yeah. So you don't come out the other side the same person. You come out deeper, you come out more empathic, more grateful, more connected to people. And certainly, I think it's almost essential. The life experiences we go through, the traumas we go through, I think are designed for us to overcome, so we become deeper and more mature individuals ultimately.
Steve, another one of your quotes, and this is from your blog, which we'll mention at the end of the show, but another one of your quotes is, there is life on the other side. We just need support to get there one day at a time. And, as anybody who's listened to Momentum for more than one or two shows would know, we're all about guys getting together, having support, whether that's through the Caroline Confidentially or mates, doing coffees, lunch, just having an honest conversation, that sort of thing. But how important in all of what we're talking about, courage, humility, but particularly resilience, right? Over a period of time where we can do stuff, we go through stuff, we have the knockbacks, life can feel like it's overwhelming at times. Just explain to us, because on a surface level, we go, it's a good thing to have people around us. But at a deeper level, what does it mean for us to know that we've got the support of others, particularly during those tough times? What does that do for our resilience level during those moments of toughness?
Well, it's sometimes hard to reach out. Maybe sometimes it's the last thing you want to do when you're really struggling and you're really in a very broken place, to reach out because you want to withdraw. But whenever we reach out, we obtain things from others, whether it's they're listening, we can process things and share things, or we might get little goblets of wisdom, little pieces of gold that we come out. And it's almost, I say as a counsellor, it's just so important to be connected with all of the resources we have. So we've got internal resources. We have so many external resources, and it's friends, it's peers, it's counsellors, it's pastors, it's anybody that can. And we should have as many of those resources on tap as we can, and tap into them. And essentially, it's a moment, it's a day at a time, isn't it?
It takes courage to actually even do that.
To
reach out to those other people and so forth. Yeah.
I've had so many times when people have said, I didn't really want to make the call, I didn't really want to meet with you, but now we've met. I actually feel so much better. I've been able to say some things, and we've been able to connect and encourage one another. Yeah. And essentially, all for me, pastoring and counselling is about encouraging one another, because we draw so much. God's part of it, and we both benefit from connecting with one another.
That's great.
And Des, I think you hit the nail on the head, and perhaps this is our final thought. It actually does take huge courage for men to reach out, and particularly to reach out when they're struggling.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of reasons why that is. We won't get into that right now, but what we will say is, if that is you and some of what we've talked about has resonated with you, or you are just in a tough spot right now and you're feeling perhaps isolated because you don't feel like you've got someone to talk to, or you're a little ashamed or afraid of reaching out, can we encourage you to look back to the beginning of the show and step into the courage piece and go, you know what? Because all of us on this call have had to do that at some stage. We've all had to reach out to another bloke and be honest about where we're at And maybe it's a failing, maybe it's a weakness, maybe it's an embarrassment or a shame or something. We've all had to do it. And it is a scary space to be. And yet the freedom that comes from the other side of that conversation is well worth you pushing through that initial fear that you may feel about sharing something that's personal, or really intimate about your life with another blog. But can we encourage you to do that? A couple of ways you can do that, of course, is reach out to us if you need at momentumaustralia.org. Get with somebody in your life and have that conversation. Or if you don't feel like you've got someone, the Momentum Care line, 1-800-000-636, and you can use that number and have a confidential chat if you need. But be courageous in that space. And we want to thank Steve for reaching out once again with all of the wisdom and the insight, Steve, that you've journeyed with over the years, and point people to your blog as well. If you want to give that a plug as we end the show, mate, that'd be great.
If you just Google Steve Wickham Counsellor, you'll come up with the Facebook page and the blogs and that sort of thing. So that's probably the best way. Yeah.
And encourage you to have a look through. They're short, they're snappy, they're to the point. They'll get you thinking. They'll help you out. There's a lot of wisdom and a lot of gold nuggets that Steve's got as many years of journeying through life. So encourage you to Google Steve Wickham Counsellor, and you'll be able to check in with his stuff and certainly help you on your journey with that as well. And of course, around our website, momentumaustralia.org. It's been another great show, gents. Thank you both for your contributions and input. And Steve, as always, a pleasure having you on the show, mate. And we look forward to next time. In the meantime, you take care.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Des.
All good.
Thank you for watching this week's show, and we hope you subscribe to Momentum so you can find out what's happening in the shows in the future.
Absolutely. And keep an eye on our website too. That's momentumaustralia.org. There you'll find all of our shows and a whole heap of resources to help you on your journey. That is momentumaustralia.org.
Until next time, keep moving forward
with Momentum.